few housekeeping points. The first one is that just to save time and make sure that we're being as efficient as possible, we're going to be running through all of the content first, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So as we go through the content, as questions come up, you can note them down somewhere. You can add them to the Q&A section that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Or when we get to that Q&A session, you can always ask for permission to speak by raising your hand and ask the question verbally. As I mentioned, we are recording the webinar and we'll be sharing the recording along with the slides and resources with you after this. Everybody is currently muted right now just for efficiency, but like I said, during that Q&A session, always feel free if you would like to ask us a question verbally to raise your hand and we'll let you speak. Okay. Today, taking us through the content is myself, Naseen Watson. I'm a program manager at Challenge Works, which is one of the delivery partners on this challenge, and we'll take you through everyone who's involved. And my wonderful colleague, Marie, who also works with me at Challenge Works. And to just get us started, the purpose of this webinar is to give you an overview of the challenge itself, talk a little bit about what we're looking for, what our expectations are, and what you can expect, as well as how you can go about entering the challenge. And then, of course, we'll have that Q&A session. So this is a wider overview. And if you did register for a webinar, you'll notice we have another webinar that's a bit of a deep dive and opportunities that you can register for that as well as drop-in sessions later on. So to get us kicked off with the actual content, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Marie.
Yes, thank you so much, Naseen, for getting us started on such a good foot. So we'll get started with what is the Sustainable Cities Challenge Varanasi, and we'll go into a video to really explain what it is, and then we'll go into more details into it.
When people move, cities come to life. When we can move more freely, we can achieve more. But how can we continue to make our cities smarter and ensure they flow better for everyone? How can we build the cities of tomorrow, today? The Sustainable Cities Challenge is seeking innovators from around the world to bring smart, data-driven solutions to improve safety and accessibility in Varanasi. With up to $3 million in funding available, we are seeking plans and technologies that will benefit Varanasi and also cities all over the world. So as the needs of people evolve, cities can continue to grow with them. Together, we can work to build a more sustainable future and help to transform the lives of millions of people. Join us, the Sustainable Cities Challenge.
Great. That was a great video made by our partner 89UP and Toyota Mobility Foundation. So just as I explained, what is the Sustainable Cities Challenge? It's really a global challenge of total $1 million of 9 million. And it's really to power the creativity, energy, and innovation to improve access to safe, equitable, and sustainable mobility solutions for all. We have 3 challenges happening at the same time and closing in September 2024. So there's the Detroit Challenge to transform freight, the Venice one to embrace sustainable mobility, and today we will be focusing on Varanasi, so to innovate crowd flow. So we'll dig more into those details in the next few slides. So who is involved? We have a great array of partners. So we'll get started with the Toyota Mobility Foundation, who is the funder and lead delivery partner. I really encourage you to look at the Toyota Mobility Foundation's website, where they have challenges like the Sustainable Cities Challenge, but also the Together in Motion Indiana, City Architecture for Tomorrow Challenge. So really great area of programs. We're also very honored and privileged to work with the city of Varanasi, so the host city for this challenge, who is one of the oldest and continuously inhabited city in the world and is home to many heritage sites and we'll dig more into this in the next few slides. Then there's us, Challenge Works, as the delivery partners. We've been running challenges in open innovation for the past few years, and we have a great area of programs for this. World Resource Institute, our delivery partner, who is a global research organization, and then 89up, our public relations and marketing partner, who just created that amazing video you just saw. So we'll dig a bit more into like why Varanasi. So as you know, and as you might not know already, the city operates with ancient infrastructure. So Kashi is very narrow and has a winding lane that makes it difficult to build infrastructure to accommodate the influx of people. There's also a growing number of private vehicles that are used to navigate these lanes for cultural and economic activities. And then there's also the significant spiritual and cultural destination that Varanasi is. So there's a big significance that draws tourists from across the globe, whether it's for a pilgrimage each year, end-of-life activities, end-of-life rituals, and other religious and cultural activities. So just to give you a bit of like numbers, in 2022, the annual floating population was estimated to be 35 times the local population, and this number is expected to grow annually. So we see in Varanasi really an opportunity for innovation. There are plans to improve the infrastructure to access Varanasi old city of Kashi. There are initiatives around tourist passes and cable cars, routes, and the creation also of a new temple corridor that is planned for development. And so we see that there's an opportunity to leverage a cross-section of both technology and urban design to create multidisciplinary approaches. So the problem at hand is that, as mentioned, Kashi's narrow winding lane makes it really difficult for people to build infrastructure to accommodate the influx of people. We're also thinking about the vulnerable populations, so that includes older people and those who live with disabilities. So they have more mobility issues, which present challenges when they navigate city and move around. Then we have Kashi that is immensely crowded, particularly around like holy festivals like the Kumela scheduled for 2025, and increased risk of stampedes and crashes. Recently, there was a disaster in Atras district in Uttar Pradesh that was more than 120 deaths. And then what we're looking at are solutions that should enable more effective crowd management and really contribute to the enhancement and preservation of the spiritual and cultural experience of the city, improve as well decision-making to really empower people to move around safely and participate in spiritual and cultural activities. And finally, as mentioned, supporting vulnerable groups, so older people and those who live with disabilities who frequently attend busy events. So we just added a few pictures to really give you a concrete image of what is happening in Varanasi. And you'll see that around the Ghats, so really like the stairs that lead up to the Ganges rivers, that there are limitations in terms of like building infrastructure, so we cannot widen the roads. You can see also the difference between a regular day versus like when there's like a holy festival happening. You see the numbers like doubling up, even like tripling up at this point. We said that the annual floating population is 35 times the local population, and we can really see it in those pictures. For the Dasha Shwamed Ghat, when there's the Dev Deepavali, you can see like the amount of like people around the Ganges rivers as well. When it's at night, I mean, like those are really beautiful pictures that show the scale of what we're speaking of. And then the Kedar Ghat, when there's like no crowd versus like when there's crowd flowing in. So I'll just pass the mic back to my amazing colleague, Nassim.
Thank you, Marie. So now that we've talked a little bit about the overall problem and the context of the situation, let's take a look at what our call to action to innovators is. And we do that through a challenge statement. And this really articulates the aims of the challenge what we'd like innovators to work towards, but without predetermining the type of solution that you should specifically create. So because this is such an important piece of information, I'm actually just going to read it out to you. So definitely go back, read through the challenge statement because it does summarize the challenge really well. So we're asking innovators to create innovative, data-driven solutions that make the crowded areas of Varanasi's old city of Kashi safer, more accessible for religious tourists, local residents, and vulnerable populations, such as elderly people and people with disabilities. Successful solutions might include tools that support the city to better manage overcrowding events, interventions that improve citizen decision-making, and services that support vulnerable groups. So you'll notice that we mentioned that we want them to be data-driven solutions. We are looking for increase of safety and accessibility, and we do have some things that you can include in your solution. However, we're not telling you exactly how to do that. And to kind of take this, to dive a little bit deeper into what we mean, as I mentioned, in this type of challenge, we're not telling you how to do anything. We are much more interested in the potential impact. So we did think that it would be a bit useful to share some of the types of solutions that we came across as we were developing this challenge and doing research into it. But keep in mind that if you have an idea that is not one of these, that doesn't mean that you're not suitable for the challenge, doesn't mean that you need to do any of these. These are just to illustrate some of the potential solutions that could fit within this challenge, but we do encourage you to think widely and to bring whatever solution that you think could have an impact to the challenge. So just to illustrate this for you, some things that might be suitable for the challenge, using GPS sequences to segment different mobility patterns. So that could involve comparing spatial behavioral patterns for the first time. For example, they did this in Hong Kong. Another example is in the city of Sicily in Palermo, where they recorded the temporal spatial behavior of cruise passengers. So using various data sources, they brought those together, including radio frequency identification, Wi-Fi tracking, and they built up this idea of the mobility patterns that help both the people on the ground who are moving around, but other organizations, including the city, understand what's happening better and be able to make better decisions. There's also the idea of AI. So you could, for example, look at solutions that are augmenting CCTV and AI capabilities to provide this live crowd counting for people, including flow measurement. And that would involve real-time crowd KPIs such as density, flow rate, velocity. And this could then trigger an alarm to the authorities or to other organizations to allow them to understand that these KPIs are being met in a specific area. That means they might be an increased risk of something happening. There's also crowd mapping. So for, great examples from this are, for example, in Haiti in 2010, when they experienced a devastating earthquake, the Ushahadi mapped more than 3,500 events in real time, and that did include people trapped under buildings. In Amsterdam, during COVID-19, a red light would go off if there were too many people in an outside space, and that would trigger everyone to then move apart. So you can see the crowd mapping both being used by institutions and organizations in order to conduct rescue missions, but also to influence people's behavior in real time as they move around the city. And that does involve aggregating really large amounts of data input and then creating a model to predict the crowdsourcing. There's also holistic risk predictions that takes into account different psychological factors, such as panic levels, anxiety levels, the psychology of rituals, as well as crowd makeup, demographic, etc., to create a much more holistic look at what risk might look like. So these are, like I mentioned, just a few of the data-driven solutions that we've seen or taken a look at through the research, and definitely we'll share these slides, go through them, and look around for other examples, but keep in mind that we're not limited to these. So why should you enter this challenge? Open innovation challenges in general are designed to support innovators as they create something new or adapt their solutions to a new context. And this challenge isn't any different. If you have an idea or you have a solution that could have an impact in this area, this whole program is designed to support you to achieve that. So I would ask, why wouldn't you enter this challenge? We have funding as a key element of support. So if you are selected as a semi-finalist, you would receive around 50,000 US dollars. Finalists will receive 130,000 US dollars, and the three winners will select up to three winners, and they will receive 1.5 million that will be split amongst the three of them. We'll also have an innovator academy that will be in person, and we're going to be bringing together innovators, stakeholders, the cities during the semi-finalist period, bring you into one place so you can start to build relationships, meet each other, and also just experience on the ground as the first point of contact and start to design your solutions for that context. Connections, being able to meet the city, the various agencies of Varanasi, as well as key stakeholders, and start to understand and know that context. And of course, we will be providing other resources and training that we will try and make as relevant as bespoke as possible to the cohort of innovators that we get in. And so all of this together should provide you the journey that will help you to develop, test, and then demonstrate your solution and really de-risks that whole process for you. So you're able to really aim and focus on the impact that you want to have with your solution. So let's take a look at the timeline. What exactly does this program look like? So we already opened for entries, and the entry deadline is the 5th of September. So you have a couple of months to put together your solution, to attend our various support sessions, such as the one-to-one meetings we have available, ask us your questions, reach out to us, engage in other webinars, and then submit your entry. We'll then go through a period of judging where we will shift through all of the entries and select the ones with the most potential to make an impact. And I'll take us through the judging criteria in a little bit and show you exactly what we're looking for. We'll then select the semi-finalists. And as I mentioned, we will have that Innovator Academy, which will be in person. So you will be expected to be able to travel to Varanasi if you're not based in Varanasi already, go through a semi-finalist period, then make a second submission once you've understood the context a little bit more. We'll have a second judging process, select our finalists. We'll then move into the demonstration of your solution before we finally select the winners in early 2026. And this table highlights that out in a bit more detail. We'll be selecting up to 10 semi-finalists and then move on to 5 finalists and then 3 winners. Just a brief admin note, you will be required to sign an agreement within 1 week of receiving it. So the agreement is pretty straightforward, but definitely be prepared to review it and sign it as quickly as possible so we can get started this challenge. As you can see, we have a pretty decent timeline, but we do want to make sure that we can get started quickly. And then, of course, we have the grant funding that I already mentioned in the different stages. All of the grant funding, including the 1.5 million winning funding grant, will be used and must be used in the city of Varanasi for your solution. So you wouldn't be able to take those funds and use them for another part of your program somewhere else. It has to go to the solution in Varanasi in particular. Great. So what are we looking for? I'll start off with the eligibility criteria. So we do have a criteria that articulates exactly who can enter the challenge. So please do look at this and see if you are eligible. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. To summarize briefly, your solution, of course, must be focused in Varanasi within the old city of Kashi. You can enter as a single organization, but you can also form partnerships and enter as a consortia. If you are entering as a consortia, then you do need to pick a lead organization, and that is the organization that will enter into a contract with TMF and receive the funding. You do have to be a legally incorporated organization to enter, and you must have a presence in India. So if you're not based in India right now, you can form a partnership with somebody in India in order to enter or have a presence in another way. The challenge is open to innovators worldwide, and entries must be in English, so entries in another language wouldn't be accepted. You have to be willing and able to travel to Varanasi, both for the academy, but also to be able to engage and test your solution in Varanasi. And then you must be willing and able to work with the local government as you design and develop your solution. And of course, you must be able to use the intellectual property. So either you own it or you have the relevant permissions to use the intellectual property required for your solution. Yeah, this is a brief overview. I think pretty straightforward eligibility criteria, but let us know if you have any questions. I mentioned the judging criteria. And in addition to the challenge statement, this is a very key element of the challenge. And this outlines what good looks like. It outlines what we're looking for exactly. So I'll run through them here. We have 5 criteria. The first one is innovation. This is an open innovation challenge. We are looking for solutions that are different from what has been tried in Varanasi before. It does need to be tailored to the unique needs of the city, and then have a kind of multidisciplinary approach to addressing the problem would be an advantage as well. So it doesn't need to be a completely brand new solution or idea. It could be something that you're adapting from another context, or something that maybe exists in Varanasi, but you're adding something new to it. So it doesn't need to be 100% never seen before, but it does need to be adapted. Effectiveness, the solution does need to have an impact and tangibly increase the safety and accessibility of crowded areas in the target location. It does need to be data-driven and evidence-based. That's a very important part of this challenge. Viability, this is another important one. We do want the solutions to have viability beyond the lifespan of the challenge. The solution needs to be future-proofed in terms of the financial long-term viability and the solution itself. And then team capability, you need to have the wider resources in order to actually implement your idea. And just to say that if you don't have the wider resources right now, but you have a plan to get them, if you get the semi-finalist money, then you can put that in your entry. That's completely fine. What we want to see is that you've thought through it, that this is what I'll need, and this is my plan to get what I need. Even viability, if you're not 100% there yet, you have a plan towards viability, and that's what we're going to be looking for at this stage. And if you go to the entrant handbook, which we'll put a link to in the chat, you'll see a lot more detail in terms of what we're looking for at this entry period, and all those things I mentioned about making sure you have a plan, at least at this stage, will be highlighted there. So definitely take a look at the entrant handbook. And I know I've run through a lot of content, so please, I hope you're noting down your questions, and we will share the recording after this so you can digest it a bit more. But I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Marie.
All right. Thank you so much, Nassine, for explaining us and passing us through the different types of criteria. So we'll just go into like how to enter the Varanasi challenge to wrap this up. So as Nassine mentioned, there's a full entry process for this. We have an online form to fill out before the entry deadline that Fulvia has just shared in the chat. So mark your calendars because the entry deadline is at 6:30 p.m. IST on Thursday, September 5th. So it's going to be soon, in less than 2 months. Fulvia also added the online entry form and also the downloadable PDF entry form. So we highly encourage you, like that, before you submit your entry, that you read and understand some of the materials that we've developed. And we had a thoughtful process for this to ensure that you have like the highest, strongest, and high quality entry possible for this challenge. So to look at the challenge terms and conditions, the privacy policy, the LGBT criteria that Nassine just showed, the challenge statement, and the judging criteria. So just in terms of the entry form process, when you will click on the link, you will be directed to an eligibility form. So as Nassine mentioned, this is like can you actually enter the challenge when you meet the criteria to enter? And then after that, you'll have to fill out the entry form sections. So very basic information like your details, your solutions. So this is really like, what do you propose to address the problem at hand, and the challenge statement. Additional information. So if you have like anything else you want to declare for impact reporting or due diligence checks. And then finally, the declaration, so that you really answered all those questions truthfully to the best and correct of your knowledge. And just so you know, for each of these sections, not all of them will be assessed against the judging criteria. The only one will be the solution part, so the part 2. The other ones will really be useful for us in terms of like due diligence processes and additional like eligibility checks, and more for like our internal process to make sure that you can actually enter. Great. So just to wrap this up before we pass on to the question and answers, we have a quick poll that Fulvia will launch.
Thank you, Maria. Doing it now.
So we'll give you about 2 minutes to answer the poll questions. Right, we're seeing answers coming in. Amazing. 100% wants to enter the Sustainable Cities Challenge for Varanasi. This looks very positive. 1% is not sure yet. That's great. We also have like one-on-one like support for innovators. If you have like any more questions you want to look at on our website, you can register as well. I think in terms of like, if you have a good understanding of the challenge and you feel like you want to dig into more of this, Fulvia just posted in the webinar chat where you can book the one-to-one session with a member of our team. It can also be from the World Resource Institute, so Vishal and Kriti, and also only Vishal and Kriti from the Toyota Mobility Foundation. All right, we'll leave 30 seconds left to answer the poll questions, and after we'll pass on to the Q&A. Amazing. Thank you everyone for participating in the poll. So if you have like any more in need of more information for the entrance support and need help preparing your entry, like we really encourage you to go to our website where we have a range of support, whether it's like upcoming webinars like these with like different subjects to tackle, or one-to-one support sessions as well with someone from Challenge Works, World Resource Institute, or Toyota Mobility Foundation. If you have any trouble submitting your entry, please do contact us at info@sustainablecitieschallenge.org by August 29th, 2024. Because of the high volume of requests after this date, we might not be able to respond to your inquiry in time. So please do send your inquiries in advance. Great. We'll pass on to the Q&A, and I know that we have a few questions already in the chat, so I'll read them out loud. And Nassim and everyone, Kriti as well, like if you want to jump in to answer those questions, Vishal, feel free to answer. So we have a first questions from Anonymous about what kind of data will be shared with the participants.
Hi, Mary, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Great, thanks for asking this question. For the application process, we'll be providing some sort of limited spatial level data of what boundaries we are looking at to host the pilot within the kind of land use that the old city of Kashi has right now, the road network, positions of CCTV cameras, etc. That will allow you to get a good sense, a good spatial sense of what we're thinking. Also, the road network will give you the hierarchy of the roads. It will also give you some insight into how narrow the roads are, the sort of lanes really are. Um, so while we are in the process of, so this is for the application, right? So following the application, we are working with the city to make some archived to make archived CCTV footages from certain cameras accessible to a certain extent, so that participants get a sense of how crowded the city really gets, and also use that data to sort of further their solution. And if you have an algorithm, say for example, that generates heat maps or that counts crowds, etc., then these sources will be very useful. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Vishal, for this. Nassim, is there anything else you need to add? No?
No, I think that's good.
All good. We have another question about what might be some good practices for decision making.
Right. So just on that, we don't really want to nudge people in a certain direction, but just to give some sort of not really an indication, but an idea of what we mean when we say citizen decision making is looking at, say, for example, it's got a complex network. The old city of Kashi has got a complex network of lanes that lead eventually to the ghats, the open areas by the banks of the river where you have a lot of religious processions, but there is no real method of wayfinding, right? So how do you then activate method for better navigation of the old city? Some sort of live information about, say, crowded areas or bottlenecks, so that people are able to avoid those areas and use other routes to get to wherever they have to. Basically, some information that is presented in a way that can be consumed by citizens and religious tourists, that help them navigate the city better and help them sort of access these parts of the city better. Again, I'd like to qualify that these are by no means set in stone, that we are only looking for, or the city is looking only for solutions such as these. We'd encourage you to think a little more ambitiously about this. These were merely examples of what we mean when we say citizen decision making.
Amazing, Vishal. We have another questions from Nikita. Thank you, Nikita, for joining in. So, is a proprietorship organization eligible to enter in the challenge?
Maybe I could take this one. So as we discussed in the eligibility criteria, as long as you are legally registered organization, you are eligible to enter. So I would think so, but be interesting to hear exactly what you mean by a proprietorship organization, if there's anything specific about that that you'd like to ask. But as long as you are legally registered, you should be able to enter.
Great. Then we have another questions from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. So there's a mandatory checkbox saying I have a prototype at the time of registration. What kind of prototype is expected?
I can take that again. So we're not really specific about what stage you should be in when you enter. So you could just have a very early stage idea, that you haven't yet like fully tested out that you could enter with. For this challenge, I would say it'd be an advantage to have something already that you're working on to enter, but we're quite agnostic right now. We just want to see what ideas you have, what things that you're working on or testing. But Vishal, Trey, anything else to add to that? Any other thoughts about the stage they should be in when they're entering?
So, I mean, we are not particularly looking for. So this is a dichotomy, right? So we want any kind of solution that is being developed to be tailored to the specifics of the complexities of the on-ground challenges related to overcrowding in the old city of Kashi. That being said, prototype is merely a method to understand. So, for example, I think this is better explained with an example. If you have capabilities in, say, um, video analytics, right? So that then becomes some sort of prototype, which can be for which then crowding becomes a use case, right? And then the kind of analytics that are derived from the through the video analytics could be very specific. The metrics that you generate could be very specific to how it can inform the establishment in better managing their crowds. I, if if not, then please feel free to ask.
Great. Nassim, is there anything you want to add? No? Okay. Mic back. It's all good. Thank you, Nassim and Vishal. There's another questions from Anonymous. We would like to confirm that we need to pick only one of the precincts at the start. Are there any specifics we should consider while picking one precinct over another?
I can take that maybe. So there are no specifics on what you should consider. I mean, we have merely given the choice, given the assumption that if you have a product that you'd like to sort of developed for the city of Varanasi, then you'll be able to look at the description of the precincts, look at some of the characteristics of the precincts, and see what precinct between the two would particularly fit your prototype or product. That being said, you can feel free to read about some of these ghats. These ghats are important places in the city. The marketplace again is an important place in the city. So some sort of secondary understanding of these areas would also inform you in your decision of selecting the precinct.
Amazing. Kriti, is there anything else you would like to add to this question?
Sorry, I unmuted myself by mistake. Please,
Ah.
please continue.
No worries. We love tapping into your knowledge as well. There's another questions from Anonymous. In addition to the submission document and optional video, what are other artifacts are expected to be submitted in September?
I can take that one. So other than what you see in the entry form, that's everything. So the entry form, the optional video to provide that visual element to the judges, just to say that as we conduct our due diligence processes, we might come to you for a bit more additional information here and there, but that wouldn't be related to the judging. That will be related just to our due diligence, just to make sure that there aren't any substantial risks, which I'm sure there wouldn't be. So we might ask for additional information, but in September, it's just the online form.
Great. Another relevant question is that the handbook mentions that in stage 1, innovators need to engage with users and beneficiaries. So is there an expectation to engage in person before submitting entries in September? Very great quick question.
I think I can answer that as well, and then Shalkriti, feel free to come in. So we're not expecting you to go and start engaging with users directly right now, especially because this is a global challenge. You might be based somewhere else. Of course, if you already have an understanding or can get an understanding, it is a competition. So that might be beneficial to you, but we're not expecting that, and we wouldn't mark you down for not having engaged with users directly. We are looking at the potential for impact right now. Having said that, to put together your solution, you can work with a series of assumptions based on your knowledge in this area, based on what you can read online from different types of research. about the area in particular or about crowding. And then once you are selected as a semi-finalist, the expectation would be that you can then go on and verify your assumptions and find out what exactly is unique to Varanasi in that context that might be different from your understanding from a more generalized area. So please don't feel that pressure that you need to go and engage with users and beneficiaries right now. That would impact your judging as long as you have a solution that has that potential to make an impact across the judging criteria.
Great, thank you, Lucy. There was another question from Anonymous that was quite similar to the one Nikita asked about, like, is a proprietorship organization eligible to enter the challenge? And Nassim had answered that as long as you're a legally registered organization, you can enter. Nassim, is there anything else you would like to answer for Anonymous?
No, but just to say, if you did have additional details you wanted to share, you're more than welcome to email us if you had any more specifics. But I think it's pretty straightforward. As long as you're registered, you can enter. Just take a look at the eligibility criteria. But let us know if you do have additional questions.
Right. We have a quite lively questions coming in. I love that for the Q&A. So we have Katie who's asking that we are planning an urban design firm based in Canada and India. However, we do not have technology or capability to get real-time data. Can we rely on your data to provide solution? So from Western Consulting.
Right, I can take that. So for the application process, for submission of an application process, the data availability is limited in terms of some level of spatial information for refining your solution, which at some point will need to be demonstrated to the authorities in the city. You can rely on some of the data that they provide, right? It will also be useful if should you be selected as a part of the cohort that works in the first stage of Varanasi. It will be useful to get a sense of what kind of data you're actually looking at, and we can work with the city authorities to have that data be made available unless it is sensitive information. We would also encourage you to collect data in the first stage so as to benchmark your solution, right? So I think we've already mentioned that, and it's also mentioned that in the entrant handbook is to look at the kind of impact your solution is likely to have or your product is likely to have, and those KPIs need to be generated by you based on some benchmark data that innovators will be expected to collect. Katie, I hope that responds to your question.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vishal. We have another question from Batuk. So can initial submission be completely theoretical?
I can take that and say, I'm assuming this is a question about the stage, so that you haven't yet actually gone in and created something. So this is a very early stage idea. So yes, you can enter with a very early stage idea. Definitely go and take a look at the entrant handbook. We are looking at ideas at all stages. And like I mentioned, what we really care about now right now is the potential impact. I will say that you do need to have a good plan in place. So the judges are going to take a look and see that, is this a feasible plan that they're going to be able to demonstrate some form of impact by the end of the challenge? So if you are entering with something completely new, completely out of the box, we definitely welcome that. But definitely take a look at that realistic plan and how to take your very theoretical out of the box idea and make it grounded and realistic so that the judges are able to see that you've done that thinking. But Michelle, Preeti, go ahead and add anything if you have any other thoughts.
The only other thing that I think I would like to add here is please just keep in mind that you need to have the capability to execute your plans. Just so whenever it is that whatever plan that you're applying for the challenge with, even if you don't have the capacity to do so immediately, upon selection, you need to be able to execute those plans. Just keep that in mind while applying. That's all I'd say.
Great. Thank you so much, Kriti and Nassim. So we have another question from Anonymous, and I think Vishal, you answered it before, but you can jump in for this one. So for the application, do we have to select just one precinct for our solution?
Yeah, the short answer for that is yes. Nothing you can also chime in, please.
Great. Thanks, we love
Yeah, nothing to add. That's a very direct answer. Yes, that is true.
Yes, correct. Great. Thanks, Nassim. Thanks, Vishal. We have another question from an anonymous. So you mentioned that the solution can address crowd management, citizen decision-making, vulnerable populations, as well as preserving the spiritual and cultural essence of the city. Is the solution expected to address all of the above issues? And secondly, a solution for citizen decision-making could be very different than a solution for crowd management. Then how will those two solutions be judged against each other, since they both might have very different and valuable solutions to answer or to offer?
I can come in here if that helps. We completely understand that the challenge that Varanasi is facing is requires a multidisciplinary solutions. So your solution does not need to address all the points that you've mentioned, as long as you're able to meet the criteria of some of the target populations that we've discussed earlier, and your solution meets the eligibility criteria, and you have the judging criteria in mind, please go ahead and apply. We do not expect you to solve the entire problem, as long as you're helping us get one step closer to that solution.
And I'll also add in here that definitely take a look at the judging criteria, because that is what will allow the judges to compare different solutions. And like I mentioned, if you go to the entrant handbook, you can see a bit more details what we're looking for in the entry stage. And that focus on the impact and the potential impact is what will allow the judges to compare something that's focusing on maybe this discipline versus that discipline. But yeah.
I would also like to jump in here and say one more thing. If you are a company that is willing to partner with another company, if you are companies that already are in the form of have some sort of partnerships and are able to develop a multidisciplinary solution that meets more than one of these criteria, please go ahead and structure your solutions that way as well. And we will be open to seeing what those solutions would look like.
It very, very well said, so that it's a complex ask that requires like multidisciplinary solutions. Another solution that Kriti said was like partnering with another organization, and Nassim reminded that we can look into the entrant handbook and also the judging criteria to help with this. We have 10 minutes left, so we'll pass on through the last questions and then close the webinar. So another question we receive is, can the prototype be a video?
I'll answer this one. So as you know, you can add an optional video into the entry form. So you can definitely include that as a video. As I mentioned, the entry is just that online submission form. You would be required to send us in anything else. So technically, your entry or your proposal, your prototype is the entry form plus an optional video. So yes, it can be a video.
I love yes answers, Nassim Michel. Another question from Shab, who says, first stage will conclude with a small-scale demonstration within the chosen precincts to engage the city with potential solution. So that is mentioned in the handbook. So is the first stage the entry stage, or is it during the semi-finalist stage? So a clarification about the stages.
I can take that. The demonstration of your potential solution is expected in the semi-final stage. The entry stage is merely a submission of an application or a proposal of what you plan to develop as a solution. And at the end of the semi-final stage, and a demonstration will be expected by the city to see how this really fits in the context of practical challenges associated with overcrowd.
Great, thank you, Vishal. Then another question is that the data that will be shared will include CCTV camera locations in both the precincts, public parking spots, polls, and historical data about traffic incidents. Also, till when should we expect the data? I think, Vishal, you touched upon this, so feel free to
Right.
enter, and Krifi as well to chime in.
Right. So, yes, for CCTV camera locations in both precincts, public parking spots, we can make that available. Historic data and polls about traffic incidences is something that we will not be providing. We should be able to provide this data in about a few days from now.
Thank you, Vishal. Another question is that there's a question in the application form stating to describe the business or operational model and how you envision this model leading to financial sustainability beyond the lifespan of the challenge. What do you mean by financial sustainability in this case?
I guess I can start and then definitely come in, Michelle and Creepy. So we're not specifying to you exactly what your financial business model should be. Every innovation, every entrepreneur or organization is different. And so we're open to a wide range of different approaches. What we're looking for is that you have thought this through, you have a plan. Of course, you can change as you're developing your solution. So yeah, we're not really specifying what that looks like. Uh, but I do think financial sustainability kind of speaks for itself, that once the funding from the challenge runs out, even if you make it all the way up to winning stage, you have the ability to carry on with your solution. So it doesn't just end with the end of the challenge. But Kriti, Michelle, any other perspectives, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just
No,
one,
no.
just chiming
Oh,
in
sorry.
with what Naseem said. Sorry, Vishal. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't have anything else to add. Could you
Okay.
please?
Okay, just chiming in with what Nasin was saying, I think one of Toyota's core pillars is to develop solutions that have legacy. We want to make sure that the solutions that we implement last for a long time and are able to sustain themselves. So I think that's what this point on financial sustainability is trying to target as well. We understand that you're all companies and you need to be financially sustainable to continue to implement these measures to make sure that you have the impact that we're targeting. And so when we're talking about financial sustainability, please make sure that you have a robust financial model, and beyond the scope of this challenge, you're able to continue to execute your solution, and able to make sure that you have some sort of an engagement with the city or other cities. Essentially, you need to be able to function as a company and as a solution beyond the scope of the project as well.
Great, very well put. We have another question. The entry form mentions us selecting, I have a prototype and I'm ready to enter the challenge. What if we do not have a prototype ready, but will develop it? I think, Nassine, you've answered before regarding the vertical versus the more like prototype ready version. Do you want to add more to it?
Yes, just to say that, yeah, maybe that language might be a bit misleading on what exactly is a prototype. When do you call something a prototype? But we are open to all stages of development right now. We would just like you to enter with your ideas. So please don't be put off by that checkbox. Please do enter, and you can always book a one-to-one with us as well if you have specific questions about your stage of development. You can get to talk to the team about it and get a bit more personalized advice as well.
Great. We have two questions left, and those will be the last two answers before we close the webinar. So there's a question about, again, data. Can we get data on the existing entry and exit points to the GATS?
Right. So the data that we'll be providing will be GIS files, right? So it will be overlaid. If you overlaid on say OpenStreetMaps or Google Maps, you'll be able to identify those entry exit points onto the cards.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Krifi, do you want to chime in on the data question?
I think Vishal's covered it. Thanks.
All good. And then the last question up for grabs. A public space improvement challenge may rely on government budgets. Is that not to be considered in financial sustainability?
First of all, to say that it really depends on the type of challenge. So if we go back to some of the examples that okay, sorry, I'm just gonna scroll up to get us there. Oops, here we go. So for example, like holistic risk prediction or crowd mapping. So the customer for you could be governments, and you could have that B2G business model. And so you might be relying on government grants, and that's perfectly fine, and have that understanding that, okay, I'm going to target these governments, I'm going to build relationships with them in this way beyond the lifespan of the challenge. So understanding more about the B2G business model, how to go about forming those relationships and partnerships is important. As a challenge, we can't guarantee that we're going to get you like procured by a government, but we can help introduce you to different organizations. There could also be a B2C element in there if you are creating a crowd map to be used by individual customers as well. So you can consider grant government budgets and working with governments as part of your model. That would not exclude you. But like any business, you would need to think about your strategy and be very proactive. And how am I going to form those relationships and take this forward beyond Varanasi? But yeah, Kriti, Michelle, anything to add to that?
So yeah, I think you've covered it mostly, Naseem. So there are, I mean, the city is open during our conversations with the administration of the city. They were open to also ideas around making spaces more efficient for better circulation of crowds, and very rightfully so that that also depends on government budgets. It's also the acceptance. I mean, I think the acceptance or the acknowledgement of the city that they are open to such ideas also suggests or indicates that they will be willing to act on it. However, for the demonstration, you will be required to use movable barricades to demonstrate your solutions. Just another qualifier, large-scale infrastructure projects might not particularly fly very well with the city because that also seems to be fairly impractical in the larger scheme of things in the administration of the city.
I would just like to add one point to kind of complement what Vishal was saying in terms of infrastructure specifically, and again referencing the presentation that Marie and Naseem made earlier. I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that whatever solutions we implement in the city doesn't take away from the charm of the city. Kashi is a very historic location, and people come to the city with a very specific purpose of, in terms of religious activities, spiritual activities, end of life activities. I think our goal is to help improve accessibility in the city and help people move better. Considering all of this, let's try and develop business models that are catered to various different kinds of customers. They could be governments, like Naseem mentioned. They could be directly to individuals. Maybe you have some commercial entities that could be the customers for your solutions as well. So you may need to do a little bit more of a study on the complex ecosystem that is Varanasi, and that is specifically the old city of Kashi, and try and cater your solutions accordingly.
Great. We're now at time, and I know there's like another question that it just came in, but just so you know, all the questions that you've asked, thank you so much for your curiosity. We'll be updating the Sustainable Cities Challenge Varanasi webpage FAQ. So the questions that you've asked, you'll like find the answers and the proper information in that section. I'll pass the ball back to Naseem.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you everybody so much for attending this webinar. We really appreciate your interest in this challenge. Like I said, we have a lot more touch points available to you if you want to email us, if you want to book a one-to-one with us. But yeah, thank you for staying with us an extra 2 minutes. We will email everything to you, but otherwise have a great rest of your day. And we will see you hopefully in other touch points and looking forward to maybe receiving your entries. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.